JFK Airport, a first-class welcome? JFK Airport buzzed with life, the sharp echoes of announcements overhead, the rhythmic hum of suitcase wheels gliding across polished floors, and the hurried chatter of travelers rushing to their gates. For most, it was a place of excitement, anticipation, and adventure. But for 12-year-old twins Mia and Lily Thompson, it was nothing more than a routine stop. Just another airport, just another flight. The sisters walked in sync, their matching suitcases rolling effortlessly behind them, dressed in comfortable yet effortlessly stylish athletic wear that spoke to both their youth and their confidence. "I can't wait to land," Lily sighed, adjusting the strap of her backpack. "New York feels suffocating sometimes." Mia smirked, raising a teasing eyebrow. "Says the girl who spent half the summer complaining that Los Angeles was too fake." Lily rolled her eyes, her deep brown irises shimmering like polished onyx under the bright airport lights. "Fake people but great weather. I'll take that trade any day." As they neared the Sky Horizons Airlines first-class boarding gate, a small line of passengers had already begun to form. Despite being the daughters of David Thompson, the CEO of Sky Horizons Airlines, Mia and Lily had never flaunted their privilege. Their father had raised them to see beyond wealth, to treat everyone with kindness, humility, and respect. Who you are isn't measured by your bank account or your last name, it's measured by your character. But the world? The world didn't always see it that way. And today, someone was about to prove it. An unwelcome reception. At the boarding counter, Brenda Collins stood with her arms crossed, watching the two girls approach. A veteran flight attendant in her late 40s, Brenda's blonde hair was pinned neatly beneath her cap, her uniform crisp, her posture rigid. She had worked in the airline industry for over 20 years. She had seen all kinds of passengers. And in her mind, Mia and Lily didn't belong in first class. The twins stepped forward, boarding passes in hand. "Excuse me, is this the—" Lily began, but Brenda cut her off. "Economy is the other way," she said, her voice sharp, her cold gaze flicking over their casual outfits as if waiting for them to admit they had made a mistake. Or worse, as if waiting for them to confess they had somehow stolen their way into first class. Mia blinked. "We're flying VIP first class." Brenda pressed her lips into a thin line. She barely glanced at their tickets before shaking her head. "There must be a mistake." Lily frowned. "There isn't." Brenda let out a long, exaggerated sigh, her patience clearly wearing thin. "Young ladies, I don't know how you got these, but these are not valid first-class tickets." Mia straightened her posture. "What do you mean, not valid?" Brenda lifted the tickets, shaking them slightly. "These haven't even been scanned into the system. Did someone give them to you?" Lily's hands curled into fists, frustration tightening in her chest. "No one. Our dad bought them." But Brenda wasn't listening. Because in her 20 years of service, she had already decided. Passengers who looked like them didn't belong in seats like these. Brenda let out a cold chuckle. "Enough of this. I don't know how you got past security, but you need to step out of the line. First class is for paying customers only," Brenda said, her voice edged with finality. A ripple of murmurs spread through the surrounding passengers. A man in a crisp navy blue suit adjusted his tie and quickly looked away, pretending not to notice. A middle-aged woman clutched her designer purse a little tighter, casting the twins a wary glance. Mia's hands curled into fists. "We are paying customers." Brenda arched an eyebrow, her smirk condescending. "Sure you are." Lily took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. "If there's an issue, you can check the system again." Brenda let out an exasperated sigh. "Oh, I don't need to check anything," she snapped, her voice growing louder. "I've been doing this job for 20 years. I know when someone's trying to pull a fast one." Mia and Lily exchanged a glance, their expressions shifting between disbelief and frustration. This was beyond absurd. "This is ridiculous," Mia muttered under her breath before pulling out her phone. "I'm calling our dad." Brenda scoffed, folding her arms. "Your dad? And who exactly is he?" Before Mia could respond, Brenda did something neither of them expected. With a swift, deliberate motion, she tore the tickets in half. Gasps rippled through the nearby passengers. Lily's mouth fell open. Mia felt her chest tighten, heat rushing to her face. "You can't," Lily's voice wavered, caught between shock and fury. Brenda's expression remained indifferent. "I just did. Now step aside." The humiliation settled over Mia like a crushing weight. It wasn't just anger burning inside her, it was the gut-wrenching realization that this wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. A throat cleared nearby. Excuse me." A man in his mid-30s stepped forward, holding up his phone, the camera pointed directly at Brenda. He wore a casual blazer, his sharp gaze unwavering. "I think you just tore up 2 perfectly good first-class tickets," he said, his voice steady but firm. Brenda's eyes flickered toward him, her mouth tightening. "Sir, this does not concern you." "It does when it looks like you're kicking people off a flight for no reason," he countered. "And I've got the whole thing recorded." A murmur of interest spread through the crowd. More passengers turned to watch. A few discreetly raised their own phones, ready to hit record if needed. Brenda squared her shoulders, her voice lowering. "These young ladies do not have valid tickets." The man raised an eyebrow. "Then why did you tear them up instead of scanning them?" A flicker of hesitation crossed Brenda's face, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Sir, I would appreciate it if you didn't interfere," she said stiffly. The man holding the phone, Michael Evans, smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "And I would appreciate it if you stopped humiliating people for no reason." Mia's fingers clenched around her phone. "This isn't happening. This isn't happening." The words looped in her mind, but reality hit harder as 2 security guards in dark uniforms approached. One of them leaned toward Brenda. "Everything all right here?" Brenda nodded quickly. "Yes." These 2 young girls were attempting to board first class without valid tickets. Mia spun toward the guards, her voice sharp with controlled fury. "That's a lie." One of the guards held up a hand, his tone neutral. "Ma'am, do you have proof?" Lily's voice trembled with anger. "We would if she hadn't just destroyed our tickets." A heavy silence settled over the group. One of the guards turned to Brenda, his expression unreadable. "Did you actually tear them up?" Brenda's face darkened, but she didn't respond. Michael let out a dry chuckle. "Yeah, she did. And now she's hoping no one calls her out on it." Mia inhaled sharply, her voice shaking but unwavering. "We're not leaving." Lily's eyes burned. "We belong here." Brenda exhaled through her nose, her patience wearing thin. She turned to the security guards. "Escort them out." The guards hesitated. One glanced at the crowd, at the phones recording, at the tension in the air. But eventually he nodded. "Miss, you'll have to step away from the gate." Mia and Lily stood frozen in disbelief as the guards took a step toward them. And just like that, they were being forced to leave. Michael's phone remained raised, still recording. "This," he muttered under his breath, "is about to go viral." Outside the gate, Mia and Lily stood still, stunned, humiliated, furious. The security guards hadn't dragged them away, but their firm escort had left them stranded near a row of empty airport chairs, far from the first-class boarding area. The flight was taking off without them. Mia clenched her jaw. "She ripped up our tickets. And treated us like criminals." Lily exhaled slowly, trying, and failing, to steady herself. "I swear if she acts like she did nothing wrong." "She will," Mia snapped. "And they'll cover for her." A sudden buzzing interrupted them. Mia glanced down at her phone. 10 missed calls. Their father had already seen the video. The video was already spreading. Lily's voice was tight with anger. "You should answer." Mia didn't hesitate. She swiped to accept the call. Her father's voice boomed through the speaker, low and sharp. "Where are you? What the hell happened?" Mia exhaled sharply. "We were kicked off our flight." Silence. A deep, heavy pause. When David Thompson spoke again, his voice was deadly calm. "Explain. Now." Lily took the phone, her hands trembling but her voice firm. "One of your flight attendants, Brenda Collins, accused us of trying to scam our way into first class. She tore up our tickets. Humiliated us. Right in front of everyone." Silence again. But this time Mia knew exactly what it meant. Their father wasn't just angry. He was furious. David Thompson wasn't just any businessman, he was one of the most powerful figures in the airline industry. He owned the very airline that had just humiliated his daughters. His next words were clipped, icy. "Stay where you are. I'm coming." Then the line went dead. Lily let out a breath. Well, that was short. Mia dropped into one of the stiff airport chairs, hands gripping her knees. "This is about to get ugly." Lily let out a humorless laugh. "Good. Let's see how they like being humiliated." Meanwhile, inside the plane, Brenda Collins stood near the first-class cabin, forcing a polite, controlled smile as she greeted passengers. The incident with the girls was already slipping from her mind. She had done what she thought was right. Those girls hadn't looked like first-class passengers. Their behavior had been too entitled, too bold. And now the flight was boarding smoothly. Everything was back in order. At least, that's what she thought. Until a passenger refused to sit down. Brenda frowned. "Sir, I need you to take your seat. We'll be departing shortly." Michael Evans looked at her, eyes cold. "You seriously think this is over?" Her stomach tightened. I don't know what you mean." Michael leaned against the seat in front of him, unfazed. "You just kicked 2 little girls off a first-class flight for absolutely no reason." His voice was calm but laced with steel. "I recorded the whole thing." Brenda's breath caught in her throat. She schooled her face into neutrality. "Sir, if you have a complaint, you can take it up with Sky Horizons Airlines." Michael smirked. "Oh, I have. And so have about 1,000,000 other people." Michael turned his phone toward Brenda, the glow of the screen reflecting off her now pale face. The video was everywhere. A viral post, already surging past 200,000 views in under an hour. The comments were brutal. "Jess, this is why flying while black is a nightmare. Unbelievable. At Truthseeker88 at Sky Horizons Airlines we need answers. #boycott Sky Horizons. At Lights. Imagine tearing up 2 perfectly valid tickets just because you're racist. This flight attendant needs to be fired." Brenda's throat went dry. Michael lowered his phone, shaking his head. "Yeah, this isn't going away." For the first time Brenda felt it, fear. JFK Airport, Sky Horizons Airlines Corporate Office. The Sky Horizons corporate office inside JFK Airport was usually a place of quiet efficiency. Today it was chaos. David Thompson stormed inside. His presence alone commanded the room, his usual controlled demeanor now replaced with something colder, sharper. He was not the kind of man who lost his temper in public. But today his anger was palpable. His assistant, James, hurried to his side. "Mr. Thompson, I just saw the video." David's voice was razor-sharp. "Where's the regional supervisor?" James swallowed. "She's in the conference room." David didn't wait for an escort. His footsteps echoed through the hall, polished shoes striking against the tile like a war drum. Inside the conference room, Lisa Palmer, the regional supervisor, was already waiting. 2 Sky Horizons executives sat beside her, their expressions tense, clearly scrambling to contain the PR disaster. Lisa stood as soon as David entered. "Mr. Thompson, David didn't slow. He threw his phone onto the table. The screen lit up, playing the video of Brenda Collins tearing up the tickets, on an endless, damning loop. His voice was dangerously low. "Explain." Lisa hesitated. We're investigating the situation." David's eyes narrowed. "I didn't ask for an investigation." His voice cut through the room like ice. "I asked for an explanation." One of the executives, a nervous-looking man in his 50s, cleared his throat. "Sir, we only just saw the video. We don't have all the details yet." David's fist clenched. "My daughters were publicly humiliated by my airline. My employee tore up their tickets, accused them of fraud, and had them escorted out like criminals." His piercing gaze locked onto Lisa. "And I have yet to hear a single valid excuse." Lisa's hands fidgeted. "Sir, I understand." Lisa swallowed hard. "Sir, I understand your frustration." David cut her off. "No, you don't." Silence. David exhaled sharply, regaining control of his voice, but the fire in his eyes remained. "I want access to every complaint ever filed against Brenda Collins." Lisa hesitated. "Mr. Thompson, A tense pause. Then finally she nodded to one of the executives. The man hurriedly pulled up a file on his tablet, scrolling through records. As he read, his expression darkened. David narrowed his eyes. "What?" The executive swallowed. "There are multiple complaints against her. Racial profiling, unnecessary aggression toward certain passengers, repeated reports of misconduct." He hesitated. "But none of them were ever escalated." David's blood ran cold. He turned to Lisa. "You knew." Lisa's breath hitched. "Sir, we receive hundreds of complaints." David slammed his fist onto the table. "And you ignored the ones that mattered." Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. Finally, David straightened, his voice final, unshakable. "Fix this." Lisa nodded quickly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why, yes, sir." But David's jaw was still clenched. Because this wasn't just about Mia and Lily anymore. This was about every single person Sky Horizons had failed. And David Thompson was about to make sure they never failed again. Sky Horizons Airlines, Corporate Office. David stood in the heart of the Sky Horizons corporate office, surrounded by executives who had suddenly forgotten how to breathe. The truth was out. Brenda Collins had a long history of discrimination, and the company had covered it up, again and again. David's voice was low, lethal. Tell me how this woman still has a job. Lisa Palmer, the regional supervisor, swallowed hard. Mr. Thompson, David slammed his hand against the table. I'm not interested in excuses. I want names. Who let this slide? Silence. Then finally one of the executives, Mark Telford, head of customer relations, shifted uncomfortably. Sir. The complaints never made it past middle management. David's sharp gaze snapped to him. What do you mean? Mark hesitated. The system is designed to filter out minor complaints. If a flight attendant doesn't have multiple severe infractions within a short period, the reports don't escalate. And if they do? His voice trailed off as he cast a glance at Lisa. The regional supervisors decide whether the case moves forward. David turned back to Lisa, his voice dangerously quiet. So you knew? Lisa's face paled. Sir, You knew. She pressed her lips together, eyes darting downward. Lisa's voice was barely above a whisper. We thought she would change, that retraining would be enough. David let out a slow, dangerous breath. So you let her keep humiliating people, until she got caught on video. Lisa flinched. I understand your anger. No, you don't. David's voice cut through her like a blade. You let my daughters be humiliated by someone you should have fired years ago. Lisa's face burned with shame. David exhaled sharply, regaining control, but the fury in his eyes never wavered. Get Brenda Collins off that flight. Now. Lisa jolted upright, fumbling for her phone. Why, yes, sir. She rushed out of the room, leaving the other executives frozen in place. But David Thompson wasn't finished. He turned to Mark Telford, his voice ice cold. Every complaint against her. I want every single one compiled into a report. Mark nodded quickly. Of course, sir. David's gaze darkened. And I want to know how many other filtered complaints exist within this airline. Mark swallowed hard. I'll get that information immediately. David wasn't just going to fire Brenda Collins. He was about to burn down the entire system that had protected her. Meanwhile, on Flight 417, Brenda Collins could feel it. The weight of every single pair of eyes on her. First-class passengers whispered in hushed tones. Some stole glances at their phones, scrolling through brutal comments that tore her apart. Others didn't bother hiding their disdain. Still, she kept her head high. She had done nothing wrong. Then the intercom buzzed. Miss Collins, please report to the front of the cabin immediately. Her stomach twisted. Moving stiffly, she walked toward the front, where Marcus Lewis, the lead flight supervisor, stood waiting. His face was unreadable, his posture rigid. Brenda, he said, voice clipped. Step off the plane. Her pulse spiked. Excuse me? You're being removed from duty. A ripple of gasps spread through the cabin. Passengers murmured louder. Some pulled out their phones, cameras raised. Brenda forced a laugh. You can't be serious. Marcus stepped closer, his tone dangerously even. Get the plane. She opened her mouth, to argue, to defend herself. But then she saw him. Over Marcus' shoulder, Michael Evans sat calmly in his seat, phone raised, still recording. Still watching her downfall unfold. Brenda's heart plummeted. She had been untouchable for years. But this time, she wasn't getting away with it. With stiff, robotic movements, she turned and walked down the aisle, humiliation burning her skin as passengers whispered and stared. For the first time in her career, she was the one being escorted out. The moment Brenda Collins stepped off the plane, she knew. Her career was over. JFK Airport, the confrontation. Mia and Lily sat side by side, still fuming, when a sudden wave of commotion rippled through the terminal. Executives rushed toward them, Lisa Palmer leading the group. Behind her, 2 security guards escorted Brenda Collins through the airport, her expression hollow, her movements stiff. And walking in the middle of it all, his face carved from stone, was their father. David Thompson. The moment he reached them, Mia and Lily shot to their feet. David raised a hand, his voice firm. You're getting on your flight. Lily frowned. But Brenda Collins is gone, David said, his tone sharp. Fired. Effective immediately. Lily's breath hitched. Wait, what? Lisa Palmer stepped forward, her voice unsteady. We deeply apologize for what happened today. The company is taking full responsibility. David turned on her like a storm. No. You're taking responsibility. His gaze was ice. Because this happened under your supervision. Lisa stiffened. Sir, David's voice was deadly. Resign. Or be fired. Lisa froze. The terminal was silent. Passengers. Airport staff. Everyone had stopped. Sky Horizons Airlines had just become the center of a scandal unfolding in real time. Mia and Lily barely had time to process what was happening when Lisa swallowed hard, hands trembling. I'll resign. David nodded once, cold, final. Good. Then he turned back to his daughters, his expression softening. You're getting on your flight. First class. No more delays. Lily exhaled, then hesitated. And Brenda? David's jaw tightened. She won't work for another airline again. Mia bit her lip. And Sky Horizons? David looked around. Cameras were still rolling. The entire world was watching. So he lifted his chin and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Sky Horizons Airlines will be under immediate internal review. Every past complaint, every ignored incident, every flaw in the system, we're fixing it. A wave of shocked murmurs swept through the crowd. Then he turned to Mia and Lily. This isn't just about you. It's about every single person this company has failed. Lily blinked. You're actually going to change things? David met her gaze. Yes. For the first time that day, the twins felt something other than anger. They felt justice. Mia and Lily felt it, justice. And as they finally walked toward the gate, boarding passes in hand, they knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning. Onboard Flight 417, first class. Mia and Lily settled into their first-class seats, finally secured in the place they had fought for. Yet, as the plane taxied down the runway, the weight of what had happened still clung to them. The whispers. The stares. The knowledge that the entire world had just watched them get humiliated, and then watched their father burn down the system that allowed it to happen. Lily let out a slow breath. I still don't believe it. Mia glanced at her. What part? Lily shook her head, staring blankly at the seat in front of her. All of it. Getting kicked off. Going viral. Dad firing Brenda and Lisa on the spot. She let out a dry chuckle. I mean, when has he ever handled anything that fast? Mia smirked. When it's his daughters. Lily sighed, stretching her legs. At least we're actually on the flight now. But even that didn't feel like a victory. Because it wasn't just about them anymore. JFK Airport, the media frenzy. Back at JFK, David Thompson walked out of the Sky Horizons corporate office, straight into a wall of reporters. The video of Mia and Lily's humiliation had already exploded online. Every major news outlet was covering it. Screens flashed with bold headlines. Sky Horizons Airline scandal. Microphones were shoved toward him. Mr. Thompson, are you making changes to Sky Horizons policies? Will the company be issuing a formal apology? What happens to Brenda Collins now? David stopped. He didn't run from the cameras. Instead, he looked straight into them. His voice was calm but firm. Sky Horizons Airlines failed today. Silence. The reporters stilled. David continued, his words deliberate, powerful. My daughters were publicly humiliated by an employee who should have been fired years ago. And I take full responsibility for that failure. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The CEO of a billion-dollar airline was admitting fault, publicly. David's gaze hardened. But this isn't just about them. This is about every single passenger who has ever been treated unfairly by this airline. This is about every complaint that was ignored. Every injustice that was buried. And I promise you, that ends today. JFK Airport, the reckoning. Cameras flashed wildly. A reporter raised a hand. How do you plan to fix this? David Thompson didn't hesitate. Effective immediately, Sky Horizons Airlines is launching a full internal investigation. Every past discrimination complaint will be reviewed. Every unchecked incident will be addressed. And any employee found guilty of racial profiling, he paused, his voice sharpening, will be fired. More flashes. More gasps. Another reporter called out. And Brenda Collins? David's jaw tightened. Brenda Collins will never work for Sky Horizons Airlines again. Silence. Then the media erupted. Because the story had just shifted. This was no longer just about Mia and Lily. It was about an entire system collapsing and being rebuilt in real time. The fallout, Brenda Collins. Brenda sat alone in a dimly lit hotel room, staring blankly at her phone. Her career was over. The news had spread faster than wildfire. Sky Horizons Airlines had publicly denounced her. David Thompson had personally fired her. Her name was everywhere. She scrolled through the flood of brutal comments under Michael Evans' viral video. At Justice for All, good. She got exactly what she deserved. At Avabe, imagine being this racist and thinking no one would notice. By Brenda. At Flight Crew Insider, not surprised. I worked with her before. She's been like this for years. Brenda's hands shook. She had spent years getting away with this. But not anymore. Her phone buzzed with a new message. Lisa Palmer, I just resigned. You ruined both of us. Brenda let the phone drop onto the bed. Everything she had built, gone in an instant. And there was no coming back from it. Los Angeles, a new beginning. 6 hours later, Mia and Lily landed in Los Angeles. As they stepped off the plane, a small crowd of reporters was waiting. Lily groaned. Of course. Mia squared her shoulders. Might as well face it. A young reporter with a microphone rushed up. Mia, Lily, how do you feel about what happened? Lily exhaled. How do you think we feel? Mia crossed her arms. It wasn't just about us. This happens to people all the time. The only difference is, she glanced at the cameras, this time the world paid attention. The reporter nodded quickly. Do you think your father will actually make changes? Mia and Lily exchanged a glance. Finally Lily shrugged. Guess we'll see. And with that they walked past the cameras. Because this was just the beginning. 3 weeks later, a new era. The scandal had erupted 3 weeks ago. And in those 3 weeks, everything had changed. Sky Horizons Airlines headquarters. David Thompson sat at the head of the boardroom table, fingers steepled as he listened to the final report from the newly appointed head of ethics and compliance. The investigation uncovered 72 separate complaints of discrimination within the past 5 years, the woman stated, adjusting her glasses. Of those, only 6 were ever properly addressed. David's jaw tightened. Most of the ignored complaints, she continued, were filtered out by regional supervisors, including Lisa Palmer, who dismissed them as misunderstandings or miscommunications. She hesitated. Many of these cases are eerily similar to what happened to your daughters. David exhaled slowly. He had expected this. But hearing it confirmed still made his stomach turn. Another executive shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Thompson, the company's reputation has taken a severe hit. We've lost high-profile partnerships. Our stock has dropped by 12%. If we continue down this path. David cut him off. If we don't fix this, we lose everything. Silence. Then he leaned forward, his voice measured, but unwavering. Sky Horizons Airlines is implementing a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. Every employee, from corporate to cabin crew, will undergo mandatory training. Real training. Not just a slideshow and a signature. His gaze darkened. And if any supervisor ever covers up a case like this again, they'll be fired. No warnings. No second chances. Some of the older board members shifted uncomfortably. David didn't care. Because for the first time in his career, he wasn't just protecting his company. He was fixing it. Los Angeles, facing the fallout. Meanwhile, across the city, Mia and Lily Thompson sat at a small cafe in downtown LA, nursing iced coffees as they scrolled through their phones. The news was everywhere. Loudspeakers. Sky Horizons Airlines overhauls discrimination policies after CEO's daughters are humiliated. Loudspeaker. Aviation giant promises reforms, but will they stick? Loudspeaker. Fired flight attendant speaks out, I was made a scapegoat. Lily snorted at the last one. A scapegoat? Really? Mia rolled her eyes. She ruined her own life. She just doesn't want to admit it. Los Angeles, the fight continues. Mia rolled her eyes. She ruined her own life. She just doesn't want to admit it. Lily took a slow sip of her drink, her expression thoughtful. Do you think Dad will actually change things? Mia hesitated. Then she sighed. I think he's trying. Lily nodded slowly. Guess that's all we can ask for. Just then, a notification popped up on Mia's phone. Michael Evans tagged you in a post. She clicked it. It was a photo of her and Lily at JFK Airport that day, with a caption that sent a chill down her spine. 3 weeks later, the world moved on. But did Sky Horizons Airlines really change? Let's keep watching. Mia smiled. Michael had been the first to stand up for them. And now he was making sure this wasn't forgotten. Lily glanced at her. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Mia smirked. Yeah. Let's go live. She opened Instagram and hit the go live button. Within seconds, thousands of viewers flooded in. Mia leaned toward the camera. Hey guys. It's been a few weeks since what happened at JFK, and since everyone's been asking. Lily jumped in. No, we're not just moving on. Mia nodded. We're making sure Sky Horizons actually follows through on their promises. And if they don't? Lily raised an eyebrow. We'll be right here watching. The comments exploded. Loudspeaker at KJ, yes. Keep the pressure on. Loudspeaker at Aviator 21. They only changed because of the backlash. Stay on them. Loudspeaker at Truth Bomb, respect. This is how real change happens. Mia and Lily smiled at each other. Because for the first time since that awful day at the airport, they felt in control. This fight wasn't over. But at least now, they weren't fighting alone.